So let me do that over again. I apologize. So this is the December 13th, 2021 meeting of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust being conducted via Zoom video conference. The meeting is being recorded by the town, and anyone else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair. First item on the agenda is announcements and public comment. Seeing none, I put the executive session second on the agenda because it may affect further deliberation. So we'll do this, and we'll go through the process now, and we'll come back into do the rest of the meeting after the executive session. So the chair states that the purpose for convening the executive session is to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. When we adjourn from the executive session, we will reconvene in open session. The chair further states that having a discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the trust's negotiating position. So I'd ask for a motion to enter executive session and reconvene in open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
So moved.
Okay, so that's Elaine. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Gary. Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Elaine?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mr. DeVasto's not present. So we will enter executive session. I'm going to stop the recording while we do so. And the one, I'd like for Ryan Curley to remain in the executive session, but the other individual I'm going to ask to leave now. You can return to the meeting once we return to open session. Okay, and let me lock the meeting. Okay, we're now in executive session. And
Harry, do you need to do something different with the recording?
yes, I do. Thank you. I'm going to start the recording. Okay, this is a resumption of the December 13th meeting of Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust, the executive session having been concluded. Next item, any housing status reports?
Go ahead, Elaine.
Well, I would like to say that we have our 8th buy down. A homeowner has found a home.
Really?
I think thanks to Kathleen Nagel.
Wow.
It wasn't me, it was the seller.
For
But you
everyone's
must have- you
benefit, I
must have-
drove past there today, and it's really a terrific house in a wonderful location.
It really is. She could get a lot more money for it. It really is goodness of her heart to want to put it into the affordable housing stock.
But
Excellent.
Kathleen, you must have put that forward as a.
Well, I did present the idea.
Well, that makes all the difference in the world.
I
So
think presenting the idea one-on-one is huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's not rather than, you know, putting it out in the newspaper article or whatever. But good for you.
So
Thank
that's
you.
wonderful, but that does bring up the point. This is the buy down we agreed to do from the trust.
Yes.
Oh,
And, you know, we had that $500,000 voted at town meeting.
Yep.
Wherever it is, we need to be able to access it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we committed $200,000 plus the cost, the administrative overhead of doing that from the trust.
Excuse me, Harry, I don't believe we could change the terms because we used the same lottery list. So it was 185. It was
Okay.
175 grant plus the $10,000 of administrative fees.
Yeah, the other one is the CPA grant we put
Right.
in. that-
That's a new
Mhm.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, so
maybe you should add that to your Charlie questions.
Like, where's the money? Okay, number 5. And I've got 2 memos I want to send in too.
And the check is in the mail.
But that's,
Okay,
it's unbelievable and wonderful.
okay, other, just
Very
reports.
exciting.
Okay, Ryan, you're up. So the next item is the zoning bylaw amendment that Mr. Curley was seeking comment on.
Yep.
I can put it up on the screen if that would be helpful. How would you like to proceed, Ryan?
It's up to you, Mr. Chair.
Well, tell us about your proposal and
Okay, so, and sorry, I was just trying to track down select board members, so.
yeah, that's all right.
So, the proposal is, to create a form of zoning relief, for undersized lots, that would then be used as affordable lots in perpetuity. There's between 20 to 40 privately owned lots that would fit the qualifications after looking through them all. I don't know, that's before looking to make sure there's no, or I mean that, yeah. So I don't know where you guys want to go. So
Well, I guess I'd invite, since you're going to the planning board later this week, Ryan, is that right?
I don't know. I don't know when I'm going before them. They told me to talk to the secretary and the secretary hasn't gotten back to me. So,
Well, um,
yeah. But if they don't, then I'll put it on a select board agenda and we'll do it that way again. So, but is there any feedback on it or?
Can you just describe it a little bit more?
right.
Ryan? Is it for these individuals to build affordable on their lots or for the town to buy them or?
So have you seen the draft?
Yes.
I did circulate it, but if I could, perhaps I can take a crack at summarizing it.
Yep.
I think the purpose of the bylaw would be to allow, notwithstanding other dimensional shortcomings, that the building inspector could allow construction of a single-family home with a perpetual housing restriction, as long as the parcel is outside the seashore, it's not currently improved with a dwelling, it's got at least 10,000 square feet of upland, and it meets Board of Health and Conservation Commission requirements, and it meets a reduced frontage requirement and potentially reduced setback requirements. Is that a fair
Yep.
summary, Ryan?
It is, and there is also the potential built in about the ZBA granting relief for a lot under 10,000. I don't know if that would happen or not, but that's the way it's written. And this is kind of modeled after a bylaw that either Dennis or Yarmouth has. I forget which one.
Ryan, these are privately owned lots, right?
So the ones I looked at are privately owned. I don't know if there are town lots that might
Yeah.
be.
I don't think so, but do you perceive then that the owner could either sell the lot to have this done, or they would do it themselves? How do you picture it working?
Either way it can be done. It's at the discretion of the owner, really.
Because
I think it's a great idea.
I think it is too. I've always thought it was a good idea, but I know years ago I sat through many town meetings where there was a lot of discussion about these undersized lots that abutted other people's lots, and they wanted to get them to expand their property and they weren't able to. So I don't know if that issue's gone away or.
Well, there is some protection for non-conforming lots in the zoning act, in the state statute. And generally it's based on the premise that because you don't because you do not own any adjacent land, you can't bring your lot into compliance with the current bylaw. And actually, the threshold is 5,000 square feet of area and 50 feet of frontage. So if you had a lot, say, 2 lots out on Lieutenant's Island, for example, or that met these requirements and had never been combined with any adjacent lots, they would still be eligible for a building permit under the state statute. I think that what this proposal does is it extends that ability to build on an undersized lot, regardless of the question of whether it was ever in common ownership with adjacent land, as long as the building was accompanied by an affordable housing restriction.
Oh, so you could retain ownership.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
At least as this is written, as I understand it, if you own a lot that meets these requirements, you can build on it, or you could sell it and your purchaser could build on it.
Is this capital A affordable? So it would follow.
It's capital A affordable, but look, so for the instance, if it was to be owned by the person occupying it, that doesn't mean that they are always bound by those income requirements. It means that when they go to sell it, like the other affordable, ones, is that they can have a higher income over time. But when they go to sell it, it has to be at an affordable price. So there's no restrictions on their income if they own it, but if they're renting, then yes, they would be bound by those income restrictions.
I remember sitting through a planning board hearing or ZBA where people did own something like this right next to them and they wanted to build a little house, but they weren't able to, but this would enable that, right?
As long as it's affordable.
Right, yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Well,
It was going to be. I mean, well, if we're thinking of the same one, it was within the last year.
Mhm.
I have somebody that reached out to me that wanted to build a house for their daughter.
Right.
right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, most of these will probably go to relatives, but
Yep.
just so I understand it correctly, you have an undersized lot, you build a house on it, you can retain ownership to it, and who can live there?
Well, you can either build it and then rent it, like as a rental unit, or you could also sell the lot and somebody that meets the income requirements could build a house there and occupy it and own it.
Here's the restriction in the draft, this paragraph that's highlighted. And it does, as I read it, require that the housing be affordable and meet the requirements for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory. So in terms of affordability.
That's
Yeah, I
actually
think-
80% or less, Harry.
Yep. Mhm.
Well.
I love it. And I love the creativity. I had seen something in the newspaper about Eastham having a committee that's looking for zoning changes. And they are proposing them for affordable housing. What can be done for zoning bylaw changes to make things more hospitable to affordable housing. So I think it's great, Ryan.
I mean, a lot of things can be done.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing now so I can see you well.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a vote from the trust, Ryan, or is it enough that nobody's saying anything bad about it?
It's mostly for feedback. If you want to
Okay.
vote on it, you can certainly vote on it. It's entirely up to you.
I suspect that in the process of wordsmithing, it might look a little different when it's done. I think I don't know if somebody wants to offer a motion that in terms of supporting the concept or something like that. I not sure I want to be married to a particular draft at this point.
I think we should make a motion supporting the gist of it, because you know you're going to hit resistance. So you might as well have at least whatever it's worth that the housing trust supports it. So whatever we have to, I make a motion that we support this in theory, and, the wording of it. I don't know. Harry, how do you want it to sound?
Well, I'm thinking about that. Because, we're talking about, supporting the concept of allowing or authorizing
Undersized parcels.
some zoning bylaw relief for affordable housing on otherwise unbuildable parcels. That sound?
Sounds great. We have to figure out a way to then get the neighbors to drink the Kool-Aid.
Well, the bylaw allows it as a matter of right. It no longer becomes a trip to the ZBA to,
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I know, but your negotiating position's a little different if it's allowed.
It
as a
is
matter of
better
right.
if it's by right than
True.
by special permit.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what my note says is to support the concept of authorizing some zoning bylaw relief for affordable housing on otherwise unbuildable parcels.
So moved.
Okay, that's Kathleen. Is there a second?
Second,
That's Sharon. Any further discussion?
Thank
Okay,
you, Ryan, for getting this going.
okay, roll call. Kathleen,
Aye.
Sharon,
aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Jim, Gary. Oh, Jim, you're muted. I missed that.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So that's 6 in favor, none opposed. Thank you, Ryan. Anything else you want to talk to us about before we go on to other stuff?
Not really, just that most of these lots exist within neighborhoods with similarly sized lots that are already built, so.
Ryan, as you move along, you need our support at meetings, let us know.
Yep.
Sure.
Happy
Okay.
to. I was
No, I'm
planning.
sorry. Okay. Next, I had an item on update on trust account balances. If there's anything to report, I don't, but I have added it to my ever longer list of things to talk to Charlie about. When we presented the next item is on the short-term rental tax. And one of the things that came out of the discussion before the select board was a request for some language. And so I put together a memo, which I circulated to you. I think that was the one that had a couple of typos in it, undoubtedly. So let me pop that one up. Let's see where I've got it. I made a list of where I put all these files so I can go right to them. Documents, fiscal. Okay, here we go. Okay, I sent this out to you folks, but basically what I did was I grabbed this language with some minor modification that came from the, I see another couple more typos. That came from the town of Brewster's policy. And this is the language that's important up to here. this last bit about the stabilization fund, I just put that in, but so I propose, subject to your comments, to send this along to the town administrator to meet the select board's request that I propose some specific language to them.
I think it's great.
Okay, anybody
Yep.
else?
I don't quite understand what the very last line means, but
Well, about the,
and the balance until the town's financial reserves reach an amount consistent with this
well,
budget.
I needed to do something to deal with the other 20%, but
So
right
that's
now, the
fine.
town's budget and financial management policy calls for a stabilization fund equal to 5% of the town's operating budget, free cash equal to 4.5% of the town's operating budget, and a finance committee reserve fund equal to 0.5%, making up a total of cash reserves of 10% of the town's operating budget.
Okay, got it. Thank
So, any other comments?
Sounds
Great,
good.
thank you.
Okay, so with your concurrence, I will send that along to Charlie tomorrow. On the Freeman Ave, and let me stop sharing here. On the Freeman Ave and the other requests for proposals, I've scheduled a meeting with Becky to talk about a road, a path forward for them. I think, and it's Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 11. And I think the one I'd like to see move first and quickest is the Freeman Ave one, because there's a vacant piece of land there that's just waiting to have something built on it.
Right.
But I want to talk to her about both of them. The second one is a request for proposals for vacant land, as you recall. And that's one's tied up with how do we finance these things? And do we solicit proposals waiting for a town meeting for funding, or do we look to change our funding mechanism with the CPA, or what do we do there? But I want to at least have the conversation with her to find out whether, to make sure she's got the resources to work on these, and to try and prioritize the Freeman Ave one over the other one, because that would at least get us,
On the books.
another unit headed in the right direction,
Right,
which is measurable progress, which I think is a good thing.
yes.
Can I ask a question, Harry? You mentioned the financial aspect of it. For the if the town buys land, then
Yep.
they would go out for a bond to raise the funds to buy whatever that is.
Yeah.
And that was something they agreed to at the select board meeting.
No,
Except-
nobody's seen this except the select board has not blessed this. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
And I suppose at some point in time, when this takes a little firmer shape, we really do need to let them know. Although technically, I don't think we need their permission to do this.
Not to go out for an RFP, but how do we pay for it is the question.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be driven by what we do on the next agenda item, possibly.
Right, that's what I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah,
It could also be driven, though, by what sort of response we get.
yeah. I know the town of Chatham recently put a property under agreement, I think in response to their request for proposals. Don't have the details. And, if we don't get any responses, we don't get any responses. We go on and do something else.
Do we think that in lieu of the other thing that we're moving forward with, perhaps we should secure that with the town funding before we muddy the waters by shaking the trees for something else?
No, that's an interesting question, and I'm glad you raised it because I was trying to figure out how to, that's one of the reasons why I did the executive session first. At some point, are we overplaying our hand? And does it make sense to hold off on the soliciting for vacant land if we know what happens with the other initiatives first?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And since we don't have any money, putting it off, I don't think it's going to significantly impact anything. So,
Okay, well, I think I still want to, get that document in shape so that we can use it, if and when we decide we want to.
Mhm.
Yep.
But I do also want to try and get the Freeman Ave one off the dime and,
Yeah.
moving again.
Yes.
So I will meet with Becky roughly, schedule that for Wednesday and talk to her about this. Okay?
Great.
Mhm.
Okay. The trust application to the CPC for the application we made was basically for the 10% housing set aside. But the trust, the CPC met on the 9th, is that right? Or the 8th, last week,
eighth.
on the 8th, and discussed the possibility of using CPC funds to provide the debt service for a bond for affordable housing purposes. Do you want to, I wasn't able to attend the whole meeting, so
Sure, I can give you kind of so there are three proposals really, about housing before the CPC this year. As it turns out, because of the town's financial situation, we're not able to commit any of our reserve funds. And so it's only the current year receipts, which total approximately 750,000. And we have requests that total approximately 1.25 million. So we have many more requests than we have funds available. And there is a very large and very popular one for funding the playground at the school, which is on the order of 380,000. So roughly half the money that we have available. That there are three housing related requests that are in. One is for another buy down, and that one is for the 210,000. And the question is, given the difficulty of finding a house, we originally said we would maybe hold off on that because we didn't want one buy down authorized buyer to compete with another. But the question is, should we go forward with that request? Number one. The
I
second,
think that we should.
you think we should?
Yeah,
This
I
is-
mean, we were able to find 2 houses for buy down people in this competitive market this year.
Right?
Why would
Absolutely.
we should
Well-
make sure we always have a buy down ready.
If it's a viable program and if we want to go forward with it, that's fine. We've already approved it. So no action is needed. The thinking was, is it still a viable program? And again, we didn't want people to compete. So if the sense is we should go forward with it, we will.
Are we able to publicize any of these great results? Because I mean, that seems to me like of homeowners being willing to negotiate on the understanding that it will be a year-round home for somebody.
Right. I think it's a good point, Sharon, but I don't know that right now.
Right.
That's right, not really about a funding.
No,
But you're quite right.
I'm just thinking that, you
Right.
know, not authorizing another buy down because houses are so scarce. If people knew that their neighbors were doing this, they might,
Right.
you know, come
Yep.
forward.
So why don't we have the Independent write an article about it
Yeah,
then?
maybe we can.
Okay, so that's
Good.
enough. Sorry, I know this is a funding.
Okay,
concern.
well, we got something a little later on the agenda where we
Okay,
can
so-
talk
so-
about that.
If we assume we're going forward with that, then the 10% set aside, Harry, the 10% would this year be approximately 75,000.
Yes, yeah, 74, 75,000, right.
To go to the trust. Do we still want to make that request?
Well, okay, so we've made that request.
We have made that.
So the question is, do we want to, or even can we amend it to request support for issuing a bond? And I guess there are two pieces to that. One of them is, do we want to do that? And the other one is reading the tea leaves. How likely is that to succeed with the Community Preservation Committee, given the other competing requests? And there also are correct me if I'm wrong, there were two other housing related requests. One is for the Housing Institute and one is for the consulting with the CDP. Is that right?
No, that's the same one in the same, Harry. That's for $7,500. The other request is for the home for and now the name
The
escapes me.
hospice one?
Not Liberty.
Lily
House.
House.
Lily House.
Lily.
Lily House.
Okay,
Thank
the
you.
hospice one, yeah.
Right, the hospice one. And the only way we could fund that would be as a housing request.
It's not really housing, is it?
Gary, is
Well,
the,
Well, it's not recreation or open space either.
yeah, not historic either. So
No.
that's the only bucket of money we have.
Gary, is the 210 for the buy down already subtracted from what's available, or is it?
No, it is not, Elaine.
Oh, okay, even though they approved it, they might
Right. So if,
go back on that.
if we're going to, so to ask Harry's question again is, let's assume we could amend the request. That would effectively take up almost all the money that's available. Based upon the estimate of what a $2 million ask would cost,
Mhm.
$2 million bonding, in year one, it would be approximately 175,000.
Yep,
And in year two, it declines, but not greatly. And it's over a 20-year period. So the total cost to borrow $2 million would be 2.66 million.
yep,
And the average expense would be the CPA would have to commit to $133,000 per year for the next 20 years to pay for that. Now, this would be money for the purchase of the contemplated land that we've talked about, but rather this would be free money, not free money, but money without designation.
yep.
So the other reality is if we don't ask now, and we don't get access to our historic reserves of CPA funds, the next time we could ask about funding a bond would be in July of 23. So we're really making a decision about a year and a half. A lot of ifs there, but
Yeah,
I heard some support for the idea from a couple of people on the CPC, but if we don't need it for the other thing, I think this might be something to do next year. I'm not sure that, I don't think the CPC is going to be very.
right. What's our argument is, I mean, if it has to be compelling.
Right.
I mean, if for instance, we had a design now that we wanted to build houses and we needed $2 million to build those houses, that's a good reason.
I
to
mean,
say we want to put it in the bank to be competitive in a situation where we may not need it
mhm.
is difficult.
So I think we have our answer. We don't want to amend to do that.
We still want to ask for the 75. Harry, how do you feel?
I agree because I'm a little concerned with the, give us $2 million and we'll tell you how it all works out
Right.
kind of
I-
approach.
I agree
Um,
completely. Right.
you know.
And the other reality is that's our big bucket of discretionary money and if and until we get the short-term rental tax.
Mhm.
So to the extent that we use it for buy down or some other program, that's the only one we have.
Yeah, I just think that it's, we're competing with some other
Yeah.
projects which
Compelling. Yeah.
that are compelling projects also, and we don't have a compelling case for it yet.
Right.
So I think I would just leave our request for the 10% housing set
10%
aside.
and go forward with the buy down. Is that the sense
Yeah.
that people have?
Mhm.
Yeah, Elaine? Okay.
Everybody agree? Okay, so we don't need to do anything.
No.
So that takes care of that. Next is, we had on November 15th, we had a long discussion about the trust's mission statement, which we voted to change, and also about the goals and strategies, which we voted to, or which we didn't take any action on. So I pushed that to this agenda, and I've got that document if you guys are ready to discuss it. Let me see if I can find it again. Let's see, save that. Let's close that. Let's open. This is under document. Okay, so here is the document with the changes we made to it last time. And so the things we were discussing were the strategies, the mission statement we've already acted on, and the second piece is the goals.
Harry, do you think we can see it?
I guess we probably can't, right? Gonna take one more step here. There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Harry, is this the material in the Dropbox that you sent us?
Yes, it is. There we go. Yeah, this was among the things I sent you last week with the agenda. And, we discussed it at some length last time. I don't have any particular things that I want to change, except noting that strategy 2 and 3 probably could be combined to just say develop land / buildings for affordable housing. I don't know why it has to be 2 different strategies, but no harm, no foul if it stays as 2. And then as far as the goals, I was comfortable with where we ended up on that, but how do the rest of you feel? And is this something you want to act on now, or what's your pleasure?
I feel like we're finished with it ourselves. I think the housing authority has finished, the partnership is going to be finished up, and I feel like the intent of this intensive to kind of help define our 3 roles has really worked out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been a very valuable process because it's kind of helped focus on what we are and what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So really, the question is, do we want to adopt these strategies and goals in some formal way? Because I think it certainly will help in communicating with the public if we can articulate, what our strategies and goals are, as well as the mission statement.
Mhm. So may I move that we adopt this document as our
Okay, is there a second?
strategies and mission?
Yep.
Second,
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, okay, we'll call for a roll call vote. Kathleen,
aye.
Sharon,
I,
Elaine,
Aye.
Jim,
you're-
Gary,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. That's 6 in favor, none opposed, so that's good. Okay, item
Harry,
number, yes, Gary.
Give me just a second. You sent us the zoning, the bylaw revision, and the short-term rental tax. I don't see the mission statement.
Oh. I
He
didn't
did send it at one point because I have it, but it
I don't know
maybe,
that I have it in a final form. I'm only asking because we have a partnership meeting on Thursday to figure it out as well, so.
Okay, well,
If you could send it, that'd be.
Yep,
I appreciate it.
okay,
Thank you,
I will do that.
thank you.
Okay. Fundraising for the trust. Sharon, with Sharon's Good Offices, Gary and I had a discussion with really
Monica McKay. Monica
Martha,
McKay.
Monica McKay. You want to tell us about that, Sharon?
Yes. So I first met Monica last summer when she bought a couple of my housing buttons at the farm agency. And she might have been the only one who paid $250 for each. So I applaud her. And at that time, I reached out to thank her, and she offered, to talk about fundraising, because that's what she does for Mayo Clinic. And she asked me a bunch of questions that I didn't know the answers to, and I directed her to Harry, and he gave her some answers. And I think we weren't really quite organized at the time to move forward on her offer, but just, like a few weeks ago, I reached out to her again and said, I think we're in a better position now, and we know a little more what we're doing, and we'd love to have a Zoom meeting and just kind of get some ideas from you. And she's not willing to be our person, because sounds like she's pretty well saturated as it is, but she did have some really good suggestions. And one of them was, which we've been meaning to do, is to reach out to the Island Housing Trust and get a better feeling, a better sense of what their model is, because they're quite successful. And so that was one thing. And she just had a number of tips that I thought were, I'm not a fundraiser and I'm not really comfortable asking people for money, but I thought it was very helpful. I don't know if you want me to be more specific or not, but.
Well, I guess, we talked about a lot of things. So we talked about where we could go to get to identify resources that could help us professionally with fundraising, where we could go to identify potential donors. She talked a little bit about how you approach a donor. She talked a little bit about kind of the foundational things that you need in terms of being able to demonstrate broad community support. She says nobody wants to write a 7-figure check if nobody's written any other checks before that. You really want to be able to show that we've got a base of donations, even if they're small. What else? We talked a little bit about how it probably needs to be a specific organizational role, that it's just not something that you want to bouncing around amongst different trust members to do it. Somebody has to be, perhaps the person who coordinates this part of the effort.
Point person. Mhm.
Yeah. Point person, fundraising chair, or whatever it is. Development officer, whatever you call it. Somebody who's, going to be the one who's primarily responsible for organizing this. She also, I guess the other thing she talked about was, basically getting your message out, making sure people are aware when you've had successes and what they are, and how, and their importance to the community, and stuff like that.
Right.
I thought two things I really liked about what she said. I think she was encouraging us to hire somebody.
Yep.
Who was
As a consultant.
advisor or a consultant, but essentially a fundraiser. Is that something we want to look into or not?
I think she drew a little bit of a distinction. This is not, hiring a fundraiser who takes a percentage of the gross, and you see, you're always running into stories about fundraisers that are taking 90% of the gross. She said, no, you really want someone who will give you professional advice on how to do it yourself, and compensate them based on for their time, not as a percentage of what the receipts are.
And maybe like a couple hours a month or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But someone to help us craft our message as
Yeah.
well as craft our ask.
Yes.
Did you have any suggestions on where the pool of people that we pick this person from or find this person from?
She said to ask the other, like, ask Watt, ask Pres Hall, ask Outer Cape Health, ask
Housing
ask
trust.
the churches. Yeah.
Well, we know who those people are. I mean,
We do?
well, aren't they knocking on your door?
No. Not,
You must be
not-
richer than
I know all those people are knocking on our doors, but who helped them with
They have
their
development
fundraising?
people. I mean, like Deborah McGee was someone that worked at what, and then worked at the Cape Cod Symphony, and then worked at Coastal Studies. I mean, each of those organizations has a development person.
Yeah.
I think as a town organization, we're in a bit of a different position. And I know, we were told that when we raise money, we have to report who we raised it from. I'd love to concentrate on getting more money from the town as a town group. I mean, I think the fundraising is great, and we have people that are already sending us checks. I think crafting our message is hugely important. But I think getting that short-term rental tax, getting our main stream of funding from the town is really number one.
I think it's good to use all the tools in the toolbox,
No, I agree with that.
and that getting money from the town is good, but it's the more that we can show that we are out there go getting, the more, I don't know, I just feel like, well, obviously, especially the town is in such a mess right now, but hopefully that won't always be. But I just feel like getting the amount of money that we need, because what we want is some money in the pot so that we can be nimble when opportunities arise.
Well, can I say that maybe we can refine our message? If we're successful in getting some land, really we have to figure out what are we going to do with that land, and what do we want to ask people to support. So it's really not it may not be about being nimble and being able to buy land, but really about how do we create home ownership for working people in Wellfleet? Or whatever it may be that we agree that is the,
I do think the fundraising, it makes a personal connection to
yeah,
people and to the cause. And people feel good when they have a personal connection.
and it's the only way that we will be able to address small affordable, above 80 or perhaps 100% using CPA, but many sources are restrictive and fundraising money is not.
It's just a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
So far, we haven't been successful at it.
Right. And I think in terms of message, I think the message really has to focus on things like the projects we currently are working on, 95 Lawrence Road, Payne Hollow, Old Kings Highway, and also on the buy down program, because those are the two things that generate results that have some permanence. Rental support for people that are having trouble paying their rent and so forth. Those are all kind of transitory things that are sort of gone in the wind. And if you're looking for somebody to give you a donation that's a six-figure donation, I think they probably want to see some permanence to it. They don't want to discover that we've spent it all on postage. They can point to something and say, I helped with that project. So in terms of fundraising messaging, I think that's where the kind of the focus needs to be. Excuse me.
Well, I think there's a lot to be discussed, and I don't know that we're gonna, really decide on a direction right now. I would like to talk to the person from the Island Housing Trust and see, and really get a better sense of what their model is, because they have been successful. And they do have some really beautiful looking projects that they've managed to pull off. And I'd like to join them in that ability to do that. So,
But they are a nonprofit. They're not as restricted as we are.
Right.
But they do incredible work. We got to be able to.
but
learn.
if we get money from private donors, we don't have some of those same restrictions.
Right.
We still have to spend it according to public procurement.
Well, that's not a municipal agency. That's a separate, not-for-profit charity.
Right. I
What
think
is
we're
Island
saying
Housing
the same
Trust?
thing.
Island Housing,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is, yes.
And-
I can
and-
tell you that with Habitat, we tend to have real success with big money when we are doing the build. And so then we go to that particular community and ask for someone to give us $50,000 to sponsor a house. And we're starting to see where we're building 6 or 8 houses where more than half the houses are being sponsored by people. I mean, we have one person that said they'd sponsor one house in a build in Falmouth, and now they're doing 3. So they basically gave us $150,000 for that build, and they will be sponsoring 3 of those homes and families. And so perhaps as we move our way forward and some of our projects actually have, boots on the ground, we will then have, something that we can kind of hang our hat on when we're asking for money. And
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I also feel like some of the legwork has to be done in advance, that it's, that figuring out how to go about it and what are some of the possibilities and that kind of stuff has to happen ahead. Otherwise, you've got this project and you're starting at ground zero. And
right.
Right. I think you're right on, is that our ask for support of quote unquote affordable housing, that's a generic. It doesn't resonate with the heart, as opposed to help me build Johnny a house on this land in this time frame that looks like this.
Mhm.
Whatever. So I think you're right that we have to hone.
Well, like if Ryan's zoning bylaw
Mhm.
change came through, that would be a golden opportunity to be able to assist people in building permanently affordable homes.
Harry, I didn't want to bring it up, but I seem to recall, I know specifically, that a prior town administrator before your time sold off the small lots that were town owned.
There have been some auctions of presumably unbuildable town
Right.
lots that the town had acquired over the years. In fact, if you go back to the 40s and 50s, there were hundreds of these lots that were sold off.
So is there much in the way of town owned land left in the 10 to
Um,
15,000?
It's been years. I don't think we did a tax title auction during the 3.5 years I was town administrator, and I don't think we've done one since. So it's closing in on 10 years now since
That's
we've
what I
done one.
recall was our town administrator who was from Albany, whose name escapes me right now.
Paul Seeloff.
Thank you.
Paul Seeloff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, typically, the presumption was that those lots didn't have any municipal purpose associated with them, so turn them into cash. And that's the way things were done for 200 years.
Before we move off the actual fundraising conversation, I think we also should be, at this point, devoting all of our energy on the project that we discussed earlier. It's a big ask for this town when all the news is that we're in financial straits and we can't seem to get our act together, and they keep saying we're gonna, but we don't. And so
Yep.
I think that we can't dilute. All of us need to be speaking the same message once this gets signed, that we have this huge opportunity, and that when this
Mhm.
special town meeting happens, that we make sure we don't blow the opportunity by not having the town support it.
Is
Yep.
housing going to be specifically enumerated in that agreement?
I don't think so. I don't think we've closed that part of the deal with the select board yet.
I think when we spoke with the select board that we talked about 75% of it,
We
and
did,
that the general feeling by the select board was it was going to be for housing. They were open to the idea of a little bit of, maybe municipal use or whatever, but my impression was that the reason we got their support was because of the housing.
Oh, I agree.
And I think that's how we get it past that town meeting.
You mean as housing?
Yes.
Oh, I agree. But what I'm saying is, I don't think we can dilute our message and start asking people for money when we're going to go before the town and ask for
Oh, that's happening. I think the fundraising is much longer term.
longer down. Good.
Yeah.
Great.
But that still doesn't mean that we shouldn't start thinking about how we're going to go about doing it.
Right.
We're a long
Oh,
way from
agreed.
asking somebody for $1 million. There's a lot of work that needs to be done,
Mhm.
which kind of leads to the question of who's going to do it.
Well, we'll find somebody.
I thought for a minute there we had a volunteer.
Well, I would be happy to work with somebody, but I don't want to be like I just can't right now.
Mhm.
But I'm willing to continue to move forward in terms of like meeting with the person from the Island Housing Trust and, just moving forward with maybe talking to some of the development people at different nonprofits in town to say, who do you recommend somebody who we could talk to, that kind of thing.
Well, certainly if you'd be willing to do that, that would be a tremendous help.
Jim, who is Outer Cape Health using now?
Well, Outer Cape Health has its own development staff, a
Yeah.
couple of people that work there. But what I was just noticing when talking about, Island Housing Trust, I did a really quick look here online about this. They have a fairly substantial development staff there. So they have directors of development, they have development associates. So that's how they manage to keep it going. And it is a lot of work. That's the thing. And Sharon, I'm happy to help you in terms of evaluating that with them as to what their model is, how it works for them.
Great.
If you want to do that, I'm happy to go along with you or, to meet with you and then.
And Elaine, I think you've had some conversations with Deborah McGee, haven't you?
Not about fundraising.
No, but I mean, Deborah and I are pretty good friends. And she was retired from her career with Coastal Studies due to some health issues. So having a lot of stress is not great in her world. So I don't think she necessarily would be the person to do our fundraising, but she's certainly someone that would be willing to talk with us. She's kind of vetting out where she wants to spend her volunteer energies. And, I don't want to push too hard because I'm like, I vomit affordable housing, stuff all over people all the time. But she would be a real asset to us. So it might be worth, Elaine, you could say, maybe we had this kind of conversation, and I mean, one of the things she said to me was, I'm not exactly sure what each of the housing groups do. And I was like, well, neither am I. So,
Well,
but
we're more
Elaine,
sure.
now that we have figured it out, maybe you could circle back with her on that.
I met a woman this summer too, and she's a summer resident. She and her husband own property here. And she, I think, is in that world because I met her at an event and we talked about the Fleet Fund. And she said, oh, what's your message? What's your mission? Tell me. And she's like, if you can't do that right away, I can help you with that. And I think a perspective from a seasonal resident too could be really helpful that's involved in that. So I think her name is Hedda, and I can find out.
Oh yeah, I sold her house.
Okay. Yeah, I think she's in that world. I
don't know, but
yeah, I think
there's not that many Heddas in Wellfleet, I'm sure.
I mean, she was really great. She'd be fun to talk to too. So I'll find out who she is.
Great.
More on this?
We have a lot of items left.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Some of them will be quicker than others. Let's see. Okay. Well, if Sharon, if you and Jim are willing to continue to kind of prepare the ground in terms of talking to people, that would be great. And then we can sort of organize ourselves once we know a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Next item, possible budget request for land acquisition funding and administrative support in fiscal 2023. I tried to deconstruct the town budget to try and get a sense of how much was spent on clerical and administrative support for boards like the zoning board and the planning board. But it looks like it's all wrapped into the town administrator's budget as just a giant staff lump sum. I don't have a breakdown, so I just don't know what a number is. And then the other half of that is requesting town meeting support beyond the CPA and beyond our short-term rental tax request for some other form of funding for land acquisition. And on that one, I'm just questioning whether that's a good thing to do right now. until we see how the properties we're working on right now play out. So I can certainly add this to my Charlie Sumner list, which is getting longer and longer.
Poor Charlie.
Yeah,
He's gonna run when he sees you coming.
Yeah,
He's
well,
not gonna know.
he's not gonna
He's
know.
going to certainly run the next time.
You better make sure he sits down.
Okay, well, I've tried to help him every place I could, so I think I still have a reservoir of goodwill.
All right, good.
Harry,
So
is he staying on after January?
he said he would stay until the problem was resolved.
which problem?
Dear.
So I think he expects, and he said he has the same commitment from Mary McIsaac and Lisa Souvet, the two people that are helping him. So I think that once these books are closed, free cash is certified, and perhaps until a treasurer is hired, he will still be here. I don't know what the timing is on a town meetings, a new town administrator search, but I'd be astonished if there was one in that office before July 1st. And I think Charlie has someone in mind to fill the gap between when he's done and when we actually hire somebody too. But he started to, but he hasn't told me who that person is, although I think I know who it is. But I'm not going to guess. So yeah, he's going to be around for a little while.
Why don't you ask him for $5,000 worth of administrative support?
Okay.
I'm just making, or 10,000. I don't know what the right number is, Harry.
I would say 10 is probably closer.
Okay, 10,000, right.
Okay. Next item, the trust bylaw. There were two comments the Attorney General had when she approved the bylaw the town adopted. And I put together and then Charlie called me and asked me if I would undertake to provide a draft article to fix that. And let's see. And so I drafted something for him, and let me open it up and let me show it to you. I think I did send this out to you.
Yes.
But basically the two problems were, number one, in paragraph 3, I didn't fix that typo.
No, you didn't.
PROV. Approving. I thought I got them both, but I guess not. There were two problems. One of them was in chapter 3, this sentence is problematic. And I think what was intended by that sentence was you have a quorum of a meeting, you have a quorum when you have a majority of the trustees present in person. Town council, the Attorney General interpreted that as we were trying to change the quorum requirement from the generally accepted one that a quorum is a majority of the authorized strength of the board. So in our case, 7 trustees are authorized, a quorum becomes 4 trustees, regardless of how many are actually appointed. So if only 5 trustees are appointed, the quorum is still 4 trustees. So I think the solution to that is to just strike the words qualified and present in purpose. Strike the words qualified and present in person. So it just says a quorum at any meeting shall be a majority of the trustees, period. And then the second one is a problem with three problems with chapter 6. In one, I swapped general laws to the chapter 268A and chapter 258. The first sentence of chapter 6 should reference chapter 258, which is the chapter that provides some indemnification for trustees acting within the scope of their authority. In other words, the town indemnifies you if you're acting within the scope of your authority and you get sued, which is a good thing. The second sentence is the one that talks about being special municipal employees, so it should reference chapter 268A. Those two references got swapped and just need to be swapped back. And the third thing was the section that deals with town meeting approval of, we should have referenced section 15A instead of section 15. So those are all just kind of typo corrections. And I gotta fix this too. I think the R goes there. Okay. So I propose to send this memo to Charlie with this proposed article and this proposed summary and let town council chew on it and just fix those typos. So if that's all right, if I could ask for a motion to authorize doing that, so then I can report to him that there's a recommendation that goes along with it.
So moved.
Anybody have any questions? Is there a second?
Second.
Anybody have any questions about it? Anybody see any more typos I need to fix?
I think you got them both.
Fortunately, Google is on it,
Yeah, well,
or whoever.
okay, so let's stop sharing. And, okay, so roll call vote, Kathleen,
Aye.
Sharon,
I,
Lane,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Gary, chair votes aye. That's 6 in favor, none opposed. Oh, let's see here. Do we want to talk about support for creation of accessory dwelling units? I think one of the things that we were talking about was trying to find some documents that we could use as a framework for perhaps crafting some kind of disappearing financial support in exchange for affordability restrictions. I haven't done anything about that myself. I don't know if anybody else has.
no,
Not yet.
Given the lateness of the hour, maybe we could put this on the agenda for the next meeting.
I was gonna suggest kicking the can down the street on that one. Okay, the thing I have in my notes for next meeting is dealing with the trust's annual report.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so that would be something that I was going to wait for December to end before we dealt with that. So it would be a full annual report. But does it make sense to be a little bit more specific about when the trust meets and pick a monthly second Monday or third Monday or something like that, so that we can plan around it instead of having a discussion every month about, is it going to be the second Monday or the third Monday or some other date?
I keep waiting for us to stop meeting so frequently, because when Elaine asked me to do this, she said, "Oh, we'll hardly ever be meeting. Just a few times a year, a few more meetings in the beginning, Kathleen."
I think we're kind of getting there. I really do, because I think, we spent a lot of time dealing with understanding who we are and what we can do, and I think we're pretty much there. I think that we're getting close to the end of the Wellfleet's financial nightmare. And if we can pull off the one big project that's on the horizon, I think life will be a lot simpler. And, maybe we don't need to meet we certainly don't need to meet twice a month on a regular basis. But we probably do need to meet in January. And, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I would suggest the second or the third Monday in January, whatever that works out to be.
The 10th or the 17th?
The third would be better for me if we
The
had.
17th is Martin Luther King.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Whenever.
So just so you know, I'm going to be on the road from probably after the first week of January through some part of April. I will be, as long as I have internet connection, I'm happy to attend meetings, but there may be times when I don't have connection.
Mhm. Completely understandable. Gary?
Maybe for the sake of Elaine and Sharon, we should have a meeting on the 3rd of January. And then we can also talk about whatever has transpired in the intervening time on the bigger project. And then we can set our regular meeting date.
Okay,
I'm going to be away about the same time as Sharon is,
Right.
but I will.
You don't
certainly-
leave until later than the 3rd.
Right. But I will have access as long as the meetings stay remote. Can definitely participate.
well,
So I hope they stay remote.
they certainly will until April. I don't know what happens after that.
Mhm.
Okay. Is January 3rd okay with everybody?
Yep.
Fine.
Okay, last thing. Open session minutes of October 18th and November 15th. Any corrections? Any motion to approve them? Gary? Was that a motion or a correction? I just saw you wave.
I move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call. Kathleen?
I think, I'm not looking at them. I feel like there was a correction to something.
I will feel authorized to correct spelling errors.
Okay, perfect.
And reduce.
Aye.
I can make my motion as amended.
And remove duplicate words. I'll just assume that I have the authority to translate it into English
Perfect.
without changing the substance.
Mhm.
So Kathleen,
Aye.
Sharon,
I,
Elaine,
aye.
Jim,
I for October 18th and the November 15th, I was absent.
okay, so that we'll treat that as an abstention on November 15th.
Right.
Gary,
Aye.
chair votes aye. So on one of them, it's 6 in favor and none opposed, and on the other, it's 5 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention. This has been a marathon. It is now 9 o'clock. A motion to adjourn.
yes, please.
Okay.
Don't forget, I'm gonna send you the document to look at in the morning. Okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Okay, so a motion to adjourn, I second it. All in favor, Kathleen,
Aye.
Aaron,
I.
Elaine,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Thank you all. We are adjourned. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
What's
all.
left of it.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
don't see you again. Happy holidays.
Yes, good, yes, and good night all.
Good night.
And a
Thank you.
good night to all.